Okay, I wrote this for a posting channel basically, and I actually thought that maybe what I do is I would just simply read it here on YouTube, my article that I wrote, Hades. I wrote about Hades. I titled it Hades, a Hot Greek God. Let me just go ahead and read it. My heart belongs to Pan, but if one deity other than Pan got to escort me after death, I would choose Hades. Aside from all the dry mythology on Hades, he is a god of the underworld. He has a three-headed dog that guards the gate to the underworld. Cherubis, right? Sometimes he is noted as the god of the physical gates of the underworld and a god of initiation, etc. There's one undeniable fact. Spiritually, this god is hot. When I received the ability of astral projection at the age of 13, my deepest desire was to know it all, of course, with all the naive nature that any young girl could possess. I really thought that I could know it all in one lifetime. The gods are what proved me wrong. After meeting Zeus and Pan, I realized that I was polytheistic, with a basic belief in the concept of the anima and animus. However, the real kicker for me was sensing the gods through a primal level. Physical emotion, what I call spiritual smell, pulse harmony, and basic telepathy. All those. Like any rebellious and fearless teenager, I went on a mission to meet Hades. I made non-animal sacrifices to him and asked for direct communications and following omens that would tell me that, indeed, it had been Hades himself that visited me. Hades met me in what people call my inner temple. I realized after meeting Zeus, the Greek gods will communicate as they wish, mainly through avatars. I have read several experiences which claim that the gods do this for a variety of reasons. My basic view. On one hand, we all create avatars in some way. Nothing is ever what it seems. Everyone, everything, has a hidden nature or aspects that others do not recognize at first glance. In addition, we are always changing. If I become somebody different next year, is my previous self, not I. However, on the other hand, we are all the sum of our A, persona and or ID, and B, what we call demona in the Threskia path, higher self. Why should we think that the gods are not this way as well? And if they are, then they can change day by day, season by season, year to year? Can they? Yet again, on one hand, Hades reminds us that nothing lasts forever, but on the other hand, the appearance of this may be nothing but a facade. The whole concept that nothing lasts forever. When I first met Hades and or his avatar, he came to me as a very desirable image of a man in a suit and tie, with his hair slicked back in perfection. He was nothing like the boring Greek alabaster statues of Hades. In fact, he looked a lot like Balthazar, played by Gavin Rossdale in the movie Constantine. Gorgeous, classy, and hot. Period. This is how I identified him when I was 13, long before I knew of Gavin Rossdale. Seeing him and sensing him to be this way. He was not frightening, entirely the opposite, very alluring. I would have followed him around for centuries if I had the time. Hades also had a prestige and an unemotional hotness about him. In other words, he could say nothing, project nothing, be nothing, and still be hot. My omen as a small child was a dead crow. As an adult, I recently performed a Wiccan and or Greco-Roman-like ritual to Hades, or I guess you could say Hellenistic-like ritual to Hades, with a door and or portal to the south, facing the mountains. 3 fire guardians of the gates, symbolic. Dedications, offerings, and 13 people who wanted to communicate with the dead on a full moon. Many of them said that they did not sense the presence of a requested dead, normally dead loved ones, but some other entity. In addition, most if not all the people said that they felt a warm feeling. This ritual was outside, and it was cold that day. In fact, a few people said that they felt warmth wrapped around them. This seemed to reinforce the genuine experience that I had as a small child to me. Hades is not a god whom invokes fear if you are on his good side. He is a god that brings light and warmth in what others may consider a dark and cold disposition. However, like all the Greek gods, it is good to praise him with offerings and or sacrifices and or pilgrimages. So I wrote this last year, I think. And that's it. I guess in this position I would say Hail Hades. Here's some things about Hades that you may not know. When the Greeks prayed to Hades, they banged their hands on the ground to be sure that he would hear them. Of course, black animals were sacrificed to him, including goats. The blood from the sacrifices were dripped in the pit, the fire pit, so that these messages would be sent to him, that the Greeks were sending to him. And then, when the person offered the sacrifice, they'd have to turn their face away. Hades' weapon was the 2-pronged fork. It was a lot like Poseidon's. It basically drove the shades of the dead into the lower world, or underworld, as I call it. He also had a helmet given to him by the Cyclops, which would make anybody who wore it invisible. Of course, many people know about the Cerberus. That's what it's called, the Cerberus. And the Narcissus and Cypress plants. He also sat on an ebony throne. There's also a cave in Greece that is actually connected with Hades and the story of Hades. So that's some of my research. I'm listing some books to the right that might help you, and I got some of this information from. Otherwise, I do encourage independent research. Hail Hades.